Okay, so we're going to go into the next phase of the trends analysis, which is M&A, or mergers and acquisitions analysis for chemicals. So we're going to go back into the share drive. So I'll just show you again from the beginning. So this is our general share drive. You're going to go to chemical trend data, in this case, second quarter 2015. And then here's essentially our table of contents. You're going to click on M&A, or actually we're going to start with our raw data first. So the raw data will be put in this SDC file by one of the managing directors, and you'll notice as similar to the chemicals and debt, you'll see a basic chemicals M&A, a specialty chemicals M&A. These are the relevant files, obviously, for the M&A analysis. You're going to pull these up. So I'm going to open this one, specialty chemicals M&A. I'm going to open up basic chemicals M&A. Okay, so this is what the raw data looks like that is pulled from SDC. And this is labeled basic chemicals M&A 2Q 2015, specialty chemicals M&A 2Q 2015. And we're going to pull up one of the old M&A files. So we're going to pull up chemicals M&A data 2Q consolidated. So what we generally do is we do the relevant quarters analysis in one file. So it would usually be these files labeled as consolidated, and this will contain all the data for, say, in this case, second quarter 2015. And then after we've done all the analysis, consolidated the transactions that matter to us, and we're going to take them and then paste them into the kind of total M&A charts, which track transactions over many years. So here you'll notice this is the old file for 2Q 2015. You'll notice a tab called SDC Basic, SDC Specialty, and another source we pull from is FactSet, which will also be in the share drive. Just to show you, you'll see this file here, FactSet merger, and chemical M&A data 2Q 2015 FactSet. So this is the raw data from FactSet. You'll notice it looks a little bit different because this is how FactSet lays out their deals and their deal data, but it's essentially raw M&A data that needs to be analyzed. You're going to go into your consolidated file. So you're going to take your SDC data for basic specialty. You're going to take your FactSet data, which contains both basic and specialty together. They are not separated out as SDC does. And you're going to take these spreadsheets or this data and paste it into the consolidated spreadsheet. You'll also notice a tab here for CIQ. We generally use this as a check, as a fourth data source to make sure that we captured relevant transactions. And oftentimes you'll find a couple of transactions that come from Capital IQ's data that are not captured in the SDC or the FactSet data. And then you'll see the consolidated tab at on the very far right. So when you bring the SDC data over, similar to what you did in financing, you're going to put it in the appropriate template. My formula is always use what has been done before, because it's generally been checked by several people, and you can be pretty sure that it is correct. Enter in your data here. You're going to make sure that all of these appropriate columns and appropriate cells are filled out where you can. You'll have financial data here, and when you do your analysis and you do some hunting and digging around and looking at different press releases and going through Capital IQ M&A transaction data and just Googling around, you'll try to find as much of these relevant data, financial data points as you can. You're going to do your analysis, label them. So for example, this transaction was commodity, this one was specialty, and then you have transactions here that do not fit the criteria for an M&A transaction for Young and Partners. So for example, and you'll go through the specific criteria at some point. But for example, this transaction was under $25 million, so that is below our threshold. Or this transaction here for Reichhold was a bankruptcy, so this is not an M&A transaction here in this case, or a biofuel transaction here, or a share buyback. You'll do the same for SDC specialty. You'll do FactSet similarly. Get your raw data, analyze it, Capital IQ. You'll do a screen for the raw data and pull it in here. And then once you get your relevant transactions, you're going to consolidate all them from SDC FactSet and Cap IQ, pull them together, organize them by commodity and specialty, and all the transactions that are marked for deletion, you're going to keep those as well, but you're going to place them at the bottom and label them marked for deletion, and you'll have your appropriate reasons. So for example, a lot of them are minority stake transactions or undisclosed. Oftentimes you'll find that you can't find the data for the transactions. After you consolidate all this data, you've essentially completed your analysis for the quarter that you are working on. And then we're going to go to our all-time file that contains all the mergers over many years, all the M&A data. So we're going to go back to our what I like to call our table of contents here. You're going to go to the M&A file. You're going to go to Chemical MA 2Q 2015, and there's a date on this. That's the last day that I worked on this file. But remember, it doesn't have the word consolidated in it, so this is how we labeled the files that contain the data for many years. So we're going to open that up. Let me zoom out here. So again, you're going to see many tabs at the bottom, and you'll figure out what each of those tabs is for as we go through. But to start, we want to enter in our new data from the most recent quarter into our all-time list. So you're going to find the all-time list in a tab labeled as All Chem Mergers. Click on that, and you will see many, many, many transactions, thousands. This is over many years. And you're going to go to the very top. You're going to create new rows, enough for the amount of transactions that you have for the most recent quarter. You're going to paste in the data just like you see it here, and you will it's important that you again follow the template that is already here and the style that has been used, and make sure all of the relevant data is in there. So you'll notice for some of these we don't have the data, and that's okay if you can't find it. But the important things here is you notice we have years labeled here, 2015, and we have a column labeled as ACQ, LOC, as an acquirer location. And next to that in column Z, you'll see target location. And you'll see another column labeled as cross-border. So you're going to fill these in manually. So this transaction here, you can see this is in row 7. Um, Here, actually, the row doesn't matter because it's going to change, but you'll see this one labeled as A as an acquired location and A in target location, meaning the acquirer was in Asia and the target was also in Asia. And so we check here, we see the acquirer and target here are both from South Korea, so that is correct. Um, and the relevant year is labeled here, so 2015. And here you're going to see something that says false or true. And this is using a formula, an if function in Excel. And you can copy this formula for your new transactions that you enter. And it should calculate whether there was a cross-border transaction or not. So the way it works is if one is, for example, these are both Asia, but if one was Asia and the acquirer is Asia and the target was US, and you put a U, this would say true. And the reason why we have the system here is because we calculate the sums. Excel calculates the sums for all the different types of transactions that we track using this labeling system. If you scroll to the right of these M&A transactions, you're going to see an empty space here. Please ignore that last statement I made about scrolling to the right. That's actually irrelevant in the chemical trends. Um, After you finish entering in all of the uh, M&A transactions for the most recent quarter in the All Chem Mergers tab, you're going to go to the worksheet labeled as billion deals. And here you will notice the numbers laid out in terms of dollar volume, percentages, and number of transactions, and the data is pulled from the chemical mergers tab. So this is similar to the equity financing Excel sheet in its mechanism. And you will notice here you're going to enter in your relevant date and copy the formulas from the previous cells, and it should pull the data from the all-time list here labeled all chem mergers. You can copy these formulas here for example, these are in rows 13 through 15, which calculate the relevant percentages. And so we're tracking a number of different factors here. So for example, financial buyer transactions, financial buyer percent of total dollar volume, the number of billion-dollar deals as a percentage of the total dollar volume, and so forth. Below the numbers here, you will see charts, and these charts are going to pull data, as they do, from the data above. Make sure you click these individual data points or bars on the chart, and make sure they're pulling from the correct data above. From here, we are going to go to a tab known as that's called labeled as FIN buyers, as in financial buyers. So this will look similar to what you saw in the equity and debt financing spreadsheets. It has a similar mechanism where you enter the appropriate date, or here the year in cell A1, the relevant date ranges for the quarter in row 4, the type of buyer. So here this is G. This is a global buyer, and you will also type in U for a U.S. Financial buyer, or E for a European financial buyer. Make sure your dates and your date ranges are accurate, or what you want for your quarter, and you'll see the output in rows 7 and 8, which is deal amount and number of deals. It links. You're going to have to manually actually type in those outputs for deal amount, for dollar volume and number of transactions into the relevant place, or in the most recent column on the right. Here in this case we're in column AD, and there you will see below the data the relevant charts, and these charts are going to pull the dollar volume and the number of transactions from the data above. So just make sure, click on them, click on the individual bars, make sure they're capturing the correct data, as in the year and the specific criteria, for example US or whatever it may be, and you should be set. From here, you're going to go to a tab labeled as Top 10. It literally says Top 10. And so what we do here is we display the top 10 transactions in terms of equity value for the relevant period that we are looking at. So here you'll see 2015 at the very top. So we updated each quarter, but so for example, at the end of the third quarter, you're going to capture the top 10 transactions from the beginning of the year until the end of the third quarter. So you'll capture the top 10 deals of the 3 quarters combined, and eventually it'll be the top 10 deals of the year, as you see below, top 10 deals of 2014, 2013, 2012, and so on. And so what you're going to do here is, this is a rather manual process, but you're going to go through your list of M&A transactions and identify the largest transactions and sort them out, sort out which ones, or you're going to pull the transactions you think are relevant, that you see have the highest equity value, and you're going to literally paste them, paste the relevant criteria in here. So the announce date, the close date for the transaction, or it's actually just the close date, sorry, and the acquirer's name, the target name, the equity value of the transaction, the enterprise value. Follow the template that you see here, and this will, as you'll see in the presentations, this will be a standalone chart. And so as you go on from, for example, from second quarter to third quarter, some of these top 10 transactions will no longer be in the top 10, obviously, because you will see some, you may see transactions that in the next quarter that exceed the value of some of the transactions within your previous top 10. And so you'll continue to update it. Here you'll see some, for example, here you see a gap, and below you see some other transactions. And so these didn't make the cut anymore because there were newer transactions that happened, that closed, that were higher in value. So here's your top 10. And this will be a chart that goes into the presentation. You'll see some other tabs here. Number of deals by origin, total dollar volume, and S&P. I'm going to quickly go through these, but the mechanism for all of these are all of these tabs, all of these worksheets, and the corresponding charts is the same. So at this point, you should be relatively comfortable with the mechanism of these charts. But you'll see a number of these, and you will know which charts you need based on what you see in the presentation. When in doubt, always refer to the presentations and see what the which are the relevant charts you need to build the final presentation. So for example, we'll go to this one, or number of deals by origin. You have a similar system here in input output. You're going to enter your relevant information at the top, your dates, and you're going to get an output for your deal amount and the number of deals. You're going to enter it in, and the chart will pull up should connect and link to the data. Let's look at this one. This one's rather involved, so we'll take a look at this. Our worksheet. This worksheet is labeled as total dollar and number of, it says TOT $ and pound SP co. So total dollar and number of specialty chemical company transactions. Let me just figure this out 1 second. Again, so it's a similar mechanism. You have data that is pulled up here. And this one, as you'll notice, if you click on one of these individual cells, this one, for example, automatically pulls from the Chem Mergers tab, and it pulls in the relevant data for the quarter. So make sure you may want to do a spot check here. Just do a manual count. Just go to your go to the total list and do a manual count of a certain type of transaction. In this case, it's a specialty chemical transaction or a financial buyer transaction, and count up how many you see, how many there are, and compare it to what Excel is pulling up. Sometimes there's errors, not often, but sometimes there can be. So it's good to do a spot check here and there. But usually it should be fine. And below you'll see charts. Again, click on whichever chart you're looking at, and you'll know based on where you are in the presentation. Click on the data. Make sure or click on the bar or on the chart, make sure it links to the appropriate data and the appropriate year, and yeah, and continue onward. Some of these charts here, you'll notice the last year will be 2012, so these are charts that we are no longer using. Just ignore those. You will know which charts you need, like I said, once you look through the presentation and you go through it. It'll become apparent. when you are updating the presentation if you skipped over any of these charts, in which case you can always go back and update them. So continue to do that for these different types. I'm not going to go through every single one, but like I said, they all follow a similar mechanism. And when in doubt, check the previous quarters or the previous years and see what has been done. And that will give you the answer pretty easily. That wraps it up for the M&A section. Okay, so not quite. I'm just going to do a quick check for something. Okay, so there's actually one other thing we have to do. So we also track the transactions that have been announced but have not yet closed. So, for example, if we're looking at the second quarter, a transaction may have been announced in, say, May, and it has not closed by June 30th. In which case, this would, if it's actually a chemical transaction that fits Young and Partners criteria, this would be a relevant transaction for our announced but not closed data. And so this is important because this gives us a guidance for the M&A volume that is to come in the coming quarters. So if you go back to our table of contents here, you'll go to the M&A file, M&A chemicals, M&A announced but not closed 2Q 2015 file. So here you will notice this is the charts tab, but we're going to focus on the raw data first because the charting is relatively simple. So what you're going to do here is you're going to run a Capital IQ screen, and you're going to run a Capital IQ screen for M&A transactions that have been announced in the relevant date range. So that would be the quarter you are looking at, but have not yet closed. And yeah, with the output, the screen should give you a list of transactions, whatever amount, say 50 transactions, and you are going to go through these transactions just as you did the other M&A transactions that have actually closed, and you're going to analyze them in a similar fashion and check whether they are actually chemical transactions, whether the transactions were above 25 million, whether they were majority stake transactions, and whether they are commodity transactions or specialty transactions. So when you do your analysis, so for example, you'll see here, this is for Q2 2015, you'll notice this first transaction is Sinochem crop protection products against Argo. And this transaction, for example, it has been labeled as OK, still open as of 7/16. So this tells us that we need to keep track of it for the future as it may close. And it's been determined that this is a transaction that fits our criteria. You're going to go to the charts. You'll get after you've done your analysis, similar to the closed M&A transactions, you're going to sort out all the transactions for the relevant ones, the OK ones, and the ones that you marked for deletion, separate them. Um, and you can, once you separate them, you're going to sum them. So you want the total equity value, or the total financial values for the transactions and the number of transactions. So if we go to the charts, so the things we are tracking here is dollar volume and number of transactions. So what you can do is just simply go to your list after you've done your analysis, and here you can, as you see, there's an orange row here, and I've typed in totals, and I got $28 billion in equity value of total announced but not closed transactions here, and the number of deals is 27. Here, you're going to just simply manually enter those data points. So here it says 2Q15, it says 27. Above it, you'll notice it says 2Q15, 22.8. So that's the dollar volume. And once you've entered those, you'll see the charts below, and make sure that they pull the relevant data that has been entered. And so you'll notice these charts are the nomenclature used here is, or the system that's used here is a quarterly tracking. So that you're not going to use the year-to-date system or even the year. So you'll add in each relevant quarter. So the next one will be 3Q15, and yes, okay, and that should wrap up the M&A.